April 29th, 1945, a Sunday morning. The sky over Bavaria was grey. The air was cold. Soldiers of the 45th Infantry Division were advancing toward a large complex just outside Munich. They believed it was a supply depot, perhaps a factory. They were wrong. As they approached the perimeter, they reached a railroad track. A train stood motionless beside it. 39 cattle cars, silent, sealed. The soldiers smelled it before they saw it. One lieutenant climbed the side of a car and pulled the door open. He screamed. Inside were bodies, thousands of them. Men, women, children, starved, beaten, stacked on top of one another like refuse. They had been left to die of thirst and exposure. Some bodies bore bite marks. The living had tried to eat the dead to survive. These soldiers were veterans. They had fought in Italy. They had fought in France. They had watched friends die violently. But they had never seen this. A 19-year-old private from Oklahoma sat down in the snow and began to cry. Another soldier vomited. Others stood in silence, gripping their rifles. Shock turned into something colder. Rage. They looked towards the guard towers in the distance, and in that moment, the rules of war evaporated. The Geneva Convention no longer mattered. Only revenge did. This is the true story of the Dachau liberation reprisals. The day American soldiers snapped, the day SS guards were lined up against walls, and the day justice and murder became impossible to separate. The men of the 45th Infantry Division were not killers by reputation. They were farm boys, factory workers, students. Before that morning, they were known for discipline. They took prisoners. They treated wounded enemies. Dachau changed them in minutes. The senior officer on the ground was Lieutenant Colonel Felix Sparks. He tried to maintain order. "Keep moving," he shouted. "Don't look at the train." But no one could look away. More than 2,000 bodies lay inside those cars. Skeletons with eyes still open. Hands frozen in clawed positions. One soldier later recalled, "We were so mad we wanted to kill every German in the world." They reached the main gate of the camp. The commandant had fled, but he left behind a young SS lieutenant named Heinrich Wicker and roughly 500 SS guards. Wicker knew the war was over. He put on his best uniform, polished his boots, walked out holding a white flag. He expected procedure, respect, a formal surrender. "I surrender this camp to the United States Army." An American officer looked at the clean, well-fed SS man. Then he looked back at the train. He spat in Wicker's face. Inside the camp, chaos erupted. Prisoners saw the Americans and rushed to the fences. 30,000 living skeletons screaming with joy. "Americans! Americans!" But while the prisoners celebrated, the soldiers hunted. Near a coal yard, a group of SS guards raised their hands. "Hitler kaputt!" they shouted. They believed the phrase would save them. It didn't. An American lieutenant, believed to be Jack Bushyhead, stood nearby. He had just seen the crematorium. The ovens still warm, human ash inside. He looked at the SS guards, then at his men. He said nothing. He simply gestured with his submachine gun. "Line them up." About 50 SS men stood against a brick wall. They began to panic. "Geneva Convention!" one shouted. A machine gunner nicknamed Bird Eye set up a .30 caliber gun. Metal clicked. The lieutenant nodded. The firing lasted about 10 seconds. When it stopped, the SS guards lay in the snow. Most were dead, some twitched. Coal dust turned black snow red. Colonel Sparks heard the gunfire and ran toward it. He fired his pistol into the air. "Stop it!" he screamed. "What the hell are you doing?" The gunner looked at him, not angry, not defiant. He was crying. "They deserved it," he said. That was not the only execution. At another tower, SS guards tried to surrender. They climbed down ladders with their hands raised. They were shot off the rungs. Their bodies fell into the moat. American soldiers emptied their magazines into the water. To be certain, no one survived. One GI later wrote home, It wasn't war, it was an execution, and I felt nothing. But the Americans were not the only ones killing. The prisoners wanted their turn, weak, starving, barely able to stand. They dragged an SS guard from a watchtower. They had no guns. They used shovels, sticks, their hands. American soldiers watched. Some smoked cigarettes. An officer asked if they should intervene. A sergeant replied, "No, let them finish." The guard was beaten to death. Elsewhere, prisoners found a German capo, a collaborator. They drowned him in a latrine. For nearly an hour, Dachau became lawless. For that hour, time itself seemed to stop inside the camp. Orders no longer came from officers. They came from memory, from the smell of the train, from the sight of bodies stacked like cargo, from everything the soldiers had heard about the camps and never fully believed. Some Americans later said they could not remember pulling the trigger, only the sound, only the recoil, only the silence afterward. No one celebrated, no one cheered. The killing did not feel like victory, it felt like release, and then emptiness. Several soldiers later admitted this was the moment the war changed for them, not because they had won, but because something inside them had broken. They had come as liberators, and for 1 hour they became something else. Eventually order returned. Colonel Sparks stopped the killings. Surviving Germans were locked up, not for punishment, but for their own protection. The secret did not last. Photographs were taken. American soldiers standing over executed SS men. An investigation followed. The conclusion was clear. International law had been violated. Court-martials were recommended. The report reached General George S. Patton. Patton studied the photos, then the images of the death train. "War crimes," he said. "You walk into that place and expect my boys to follow a rule book?" The report was dismissed. According to some accounts, it was burned. According to others, buried and sealed forever. "There will be no trial," Patton ordered. The SS got what they deserved. The investigation was quashed. No American soldier was charged. The lieutenant who ordered the shooting went home. He never spoke publicly about that day. The Dachau reprisals remain controversial. Extremists point to them and say, "Look, the Americans were just as bad." Historians disagree. This was not policy. It was not genocide. It was the breaking point of the human mind when confronted with industrial evil. Today, Dachau is a memorial. It honors the victims. There is no marker for the SS guards who died against the wall. Their graves are unmarked, their names forgotten. History has judged them. They built hell, and on April the 29th, 1945, they met it.